So I guess first things first, how have you been doing over this last year, COVID year?
So I've actually been doing, I think I'm one of those people who sort of actually benefited in a sense from the lockdown, I think mentally. I really got to spend a lot of time with my family, which was nice. Well, my mum, because my dad was away flying because he's a pilot. Um, but it was really great in the sense that I feel like I'm a lot closer now with my family, and I really appreciate now the time that I got to spend with my family because a lot of my family lives in Italy, and obviously I couldn't go see them
Mhm.
because of COVID. And I was so used to being able to, see them at Christmas, and like that was just the thing that happened every year. And then this year, obviously, I wasn't able to. Um, and they announced that we couldn't leave the country the day before my flight.
Oh wow.
So we woke up at 4 in the morning, my mum and I, to get ready to go on our flight, and then we saw, and we were like, "Oh my god, we can't go. They cancelled it." So
Yeah.
I think it's really, but it's made me take everything it's really made me appreciate everything that I have and everything that I got to do before COVID. But like now, just small things, like going for a walk
Mhm.
seems like a huge outing for me. So
Yeah.
I've learned to appreciate kind of the smaller things, I
Yeah.
guess.
So how old are you now? I'm trying to think.
But I'm 18
You're
now.
18 now. So you should be able to like 18, that's kind of like the year of celebration for you, right? But I guess that's kind of been in a way taken away from you, like going out and sort of exam results partying and meeting new people and doing things. Has that been difficult to kind of accept as a 18-year-old?
Well, I think it was more difficult for a lot of my friends in the sense
Mhm.
that I don't really like going out. This
Yeah,
sounds awful.
okay.
This sounds awful for an actress as well, because like acting, like you have to go out and like mingle and meet people. But I mean, like if it's for an acting function or something, then I like it. But I don't know. I really like staying at home. But now I think that probably after COVID, I'll kind of have to, get out, because like why would you stay at home after this?
Yeah,
You've been at home for so long. So
yeah.
um, yeah, for my 18th, I mean, it was like a small celebration. I was actually lucky because they eased up the restrictions and I was able to go fly back to Italy and see my family for my birthday. But we didn't do anything like big, like we just kind of had a dinner um, at home. But to be honest, for me, that was the perfect birthday.
Yeah.
So
Well, you've been busy over the last year as well. Like, well, obviously with finding Alice, how
yeah.
was that whole experience been? Like, I've watched the first 3 episodes. I've got to catch up, but yeah, it's been really great watching it so far. I mean, how was it like? I suppose first, how was it like filming during a pandemic? Is that strange to do?
Well, it was really weird as well because we started before the pandemic. So we
Right.
started in January. And then it was kind of weird because we would be coming to work and, like the headlines kept being about COVID. And we were like, what
Mhm.
is this? What is this? And then one day we were filming and they said, can everyone just stay back for a second, please? And then they just stood up and they said, we can't. You're not going to be coming in tomorrow. We were like, what? They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're shutting down. And we were all so confused. And we said, well, when do you think we're going to come back? They were like, well, hopefully in like a month, but we don't know. And it
Mm.
wasn't a month, it was 6 months. So
Wow.
it was kind of crazy because we started filming, and also it's a show about grief. So when we started filming, I think that we were kind of filming in a, I guess, happier world environment.
Mhm.
And then when we came back, we were filming in kind of this different world where, so many people now have experienced grief. So I think the show became a lot more relevant to a lot of people. Like I got a lot of messages after the show came out about how like people had lost their dads in like during lockdown, during the course of lockdown, like to COVID
Mm.
and stuff, and that the show really helped them deal with it. And I just thought that, like for me, that was like the nicest feedback I could get, because like you want the show to help people. That's like the main goal. And I think that oddly it actually came at a time when people needed it most,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like, I suppose, finding that character in Charlotte that's the teenager that's going through grief? Like, was that really interesting for you to kind of explore?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. the way that Charlotte was written. I've said this before in a few interviews, but when I first read the script, I think that something that's really interesting about her is that she's very emotionally reserved. And that's firstly for someone who, you know, I mean, obviously I'm reading loads of scripts about teenage girls because that's like the parts
Yeah.
when you're a teenager, you pretty much only audition for kind of your age bracket. And so I kind of, you know, you notice a pattern in like the way that teenage girls are written. And this completely broke it in the sense that normally they're written as really over emotional, and she's not at all. She's really emotionally reserved, which is actually a trait that you see typically in scripts more in men. You see written like more male characters that are like
Yeah.
that, which is weird because in my experience, like my male friends aren't like that. They're all really in touch with their emotions. I don't know. Maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe I've just got really nice guy friends. I don't know. But then another thing that I thought was really interesting was the fact that she's written as very family orientated. Like they ask her later on in the script and on the later episodes. I don't know how many you've watched, but Joanna Lumley asked my character. She says, "Oh God, why don't you just get a boyfriend? Like, why don't you get a boyfriend? He could help you kind of deal with this." Kind of. And she says, "No, I don't want a boyfriend." But it's kind of, I think, in this sense, because maybe she does want a boyfriend. She talks about liking someone at school, but the fact of the matter is that for her, the most important thing is taking care of her mum. And I think that that's a really nice quality to be able to see in a teenager, because I feel like a lot of the time they're written where, oh, they meet a boy and then, oh, who cares about my family? Let's go and, you know, have a romance.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not really the reality for a lot of people. I think that teenagers, especially nowadays, I guess, are really, I mean, like a lot of my friends, they're very family orientated. And even if they're not, you kind of, I feel like teenagers, they will always find a way to make a family of some sort. If they can't find that at home, they will be family orientated in some way, whether that family is their friends. And I think that it's nice to see that kind of loyalty represented in a teenage character.
Yeah, I suppose as well, like it's going back to the sort of times we're in at the minute, it's really nice to see that as well, isn't it? Because I guess people that are going through that sort of grief as well at the minute, and teenagers are probably not having to get, you know, not able to kind of go out there and enjoy the parties and stuff at the minute. They are having to sort of see how mum and dad are doing as well at the minute, because they're probably going through really hard times, sort of not knowing about pressures with their jobs or grief or losing parents or elderly. They might have lost their job, like I say. So yeah, I guess for teenagers, it's a really interesting watch as well.
Yeah, it is. I think that it's great. For me, I'm really happy as well. I just think that the writing in the show is so amazing because it's so complex in the sense that it doesn't adhere to one genre, which I really like, because most of my favorite shows are kind of like that. I wouldn't be able to kind of put them into one genre.
Yeah.
And I know that we got some people were like really confused and they didn't like that. But the thing is that what I found really interesting was that I got messages from people, all the people that had experienced grief like firsthand. They all said that the fact that the comedy was mixed in so much into the kind of grief and darkness of it, they said that that's realistic for them. So it was actually one of the most realistic. I got a message from a girl who said it was one of the most realistic kind of representations that she'd seen. That was really amazing, you know, for me to hear, because like who doesn't want to be part of something like that, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think in the first episode of Fine Arts, it's really nice as well, because I know Charlotte's just, you know, she's just lost her dad at the end of the day, but she's really focusing on her mum. You know, I guess the initial thing you'd think the teenager's going to be absolutely devastated, probably more so than the mum would be, but your character's really just making sure mum's okay. You're taking the bottle away from her, sort of getting her up in the morning. So yeah, that was really interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, I really like how maternal and kind of she takes on the parental role, and I think that that's quite truthful. It seems weird when you kind of read it, but then when it's put into action it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because that is really, I mean, from seeing, I have a lot of friends who've had to deal with things like this. A lot of my friends actually have lost their fathers, oddly, quite recently, and they, I think, really do kind of have to hold it together, because they are sort of the glue, I find, a lot of the time in grief. the children are kind of the glue that holds the adults together.
Yeah.
When something like that happens, because also she is kind of the last thing that she's got that is a part of Harry in the show.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that I feel like Charlotte has to deal with a lot in the show, but that is something that she really holds on to, that she is part of her dad, and that she kind of feels like because he's gone now, she has the responsibility of having to care for her mum.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
think that Harry was kind of a lot more like Charlotte in terms of personality,
Yeah.
whereas Alice and Charlotte are quite different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's interesting that she kind of has to step into his role as well as fulfilling her own. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a really weird balance, but I really like it.
Yeah. Have you got quite a few like feedback from, I guess, friends and things like that, or people that watch the show about people that are going through maybe something similar? Have you had feedback about your character?
Yeah, I have actually. I mean, I keep getting messages. I feel really lucky. It's one of the first times when I thought, you know, Instagram is actually such a good way to reach out to people. I've never experienced it like that before.
Mm-hmm.
I've never gotten kind of kind messages from strangers, and I've gotten so many messages, and people would just send me paragraphs and paragraphs telling me about their personal story and how they've lost their father or their mum, or you know, someone really close to them. And one girl messaged me, and I nearly cried when I read it because it was so sweet. She said that Charlotte, as a character, made her feel like it was okay to not break down because you don't want to kind of let everyone else down around you.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlotte made her feel like it was okay to hold things in if that's the way that you cope with it. And I felt so, I don't know, that just was, it's really great to be able to be a part of something that kind of can help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
And,
never experienced it so much before, and I'm really grateful.
yeah. And what an amazing cast that you had, right, for Finding Alice. Keeley, Hawes, Nigel Havis, Joanna Lumley. I mean, do you ever have to kind of pinch yourself that you're kind of, you know, for one of your first sort of television gigs, I suppose, that you're kind of working with such renowned people, you know, talented people?
Definitely. I mean, they're all so kind as well. They're all great role models.
Mm-hmm.
They teach you so much. I mean, I said to someone that being on Finding Alice was kind of like being it. I don't know. It's like a crash course in the whole of like TV. I mean, it's amazing. You've got these like screen legends there that you can just learn from and pull things from. And I mean, it's also just great because like who doesn't want, you know, to be friends with Joanna Lumley and like Nigel? I mean, they're all so funny as well. They're all so kind. They've all got great personalities, which I mean, I find a lot of the time with people when I've met people that are kind of quite well known and stuff, a lot of the time half of it is the fact that they're such nice people that they're just really employable and people just want to work with them because they're
Mm-hmm.
just so nice. So I think that that was something that I've really realized on set, is that, you know, there's no point in kind of like, because sometimes I'll have to do, you know, reads and stuff with people that are really like well known. I get really nervous and stuff, you know, for auditions, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no point in getting like crazy nervous because, you know, those people are successful for a reason, not just because they're good actors, but also because they're good people most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel really lucky. They're
I
all
guess
great.
I guess you learned quite a lot on set with them as well, right?
Yeah, I learned so much from them. One of the main things I learned, I think, I've said this a lot, but I just can't stress it enough, is I've really learned, especially from Keeley, to be a considerate actress. And I never knew what that meant until Finding Alice. And Keeley really taught me about how, you know, you need to always give 100% to the performance, even when you're not the one that's being filmed, even
Mm-hmm.
when you're the one that's standing behind the camera for the shot of them. Um, because it helps the other person with their performance, and that's consideration on your part. And when you do that for someone else, they'll do it for you, and then all together it's going to be a better show because of that. So that was something I really learned that I think
Yeah.
I'll always take with me. So I'm really lucky.
Yeah, and Keeley's been smashing it as well, hasn't she? She's been doing obviously finalist, It's a Sin as well, and I watched her recently in the Roald Dahl film on Sky, which you played.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely amazing role in that as Patricia Neal. So yeah, you're definitely in good hands with the actors that you've been working with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel so lucky that also I can kind of just, it's a strange feeling being able to kind of just text Keeley. Like if I'm like, oh, hi Keeley, I miss you. I can just text her whenever I want. Or like I email with Joanna a lot. Me and Joanna email each other quite a lot. And we have like these great conversations, and I like to talk to her about her travel documentaries.
Oh yeah, they're wonderful. Yeah.
And so I like talking to her about that on email. But she's great. I mean, everyone's great. I love them all. They're just genuinely great people. So I feel really lucky that they were the cast that I got to work with.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, obviously you've been performing for most of your teenage life, right? I suppose, and as a child as well. Yeah.
I started performing when I was 11.
11, yeah. And so, do you still have you? I mean, when you're going for these auditions for big shows or whatever it is, do you still get those nervous, or have you kind of got the, you know?
Oh my God, I get so nervous. So nervous. I mean, so nervous. Yeah. There's nothing like waiting as well to hear. I think for me, it's almost more nerve-wracking when you're waiting to hear about a part. Like, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest nerve.
Not knowing, yeah.
And that never goes away. I mean, I don't know. For me, it hasn't gone away, and it's been like how many years? 7 years now. Hasn't gone away. But I think that that's part of the joy of it. I mean, the whole thing about being an actor is kind of the whole job is based on your emotions, isn't it? And kind of your ability to access them. So it makes sense that it would be an emotional process to get the job as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on you, I suppose, like at a young age to kind of be able to be in those environments and go through really challenging auditions and things like that. Like, I suppose you're getting a bit more used to it now, but when you were younger, was it hard at first to kind of deal with those pressures?
Yeah, when I was younger, I think it was hard with the auditions. When I was really young, like when I was 11, I struggled with the rejection element of it. I remember there was a point right before I got my first job, which was the NETHER, which was like amazing. I'm so happy that I didn't move. But I was like, I said to my mom, I was like, Mom, I can't do this. I mean, I had done like 100 auditions maybe, and I was just like, Mom, I haven't gotten any of these. I keep getting cut. Like, I'm not good enough. We just need to move back home to Italy. Like, I'm not good enough. And then I went in for the NETHER, and then I got to read with the director, and then I got cast. And I don't know. I mean, it always comes out of nowhere. It always comes out of nowhere. Like, especially when, even now, like, I kind of assumed that because we're in lockdown, things would be quiet, you know? But it's been like busiest time of my life probably in terms of auditions. It's crazy, but I love it. Like, I love self-taping, so I'm quite lucky on that. Like, I really enjoy it, so I'll spend hours doing self-tape. I'm quite a perfectionist, so if I don't like something, there's a job right now that I'm in, you know, recalls for. There's a few that I'm in recalls for, but you know, for my first tapes for them, like, it's not like I just film it once and I'm like, done. I literally spent probably, there's one job that I'm up for at the moment that I love, but I probably, for my first audition for it, I must have spent like 6 hours filming this 2-minute tape. Because I was just like, no, it's not right. I need to do it until it's right. But I don't know if I necessarily recommend that, because that's quite draining and quite like a,
yeah, I suppose the more you watch it as well, I guess you can be a bit like, oh no, there's always little things you can think like you could do better, right? When you watch it.
Sometimes you watch it back and you've been doing it for 6 hours and you're like, oh, I like the first one best.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you talked a little bit there about social media.
Yeah.
You know, sort of getting messages and stuff. It's nice that you're getting nice messages as well. But like, what is it like when you've had the sort of negative more messages, like you know, because I suppose for a young person as well, you're probably gonna have to deal with that as you get older and you get you're on television and big shows. You know, the more you probably will have to deal with that. But what is it like to experience, I guess, for the first time when you're not getting some messages from people, strangers, weird messages or negative messages from strangers?
I get a lot of weird messages.
Okay.
Yeah, which I don't know, I didn't expect it. So I
Yeah.
was like, how can you write a weird message? I don't know. I mean, I know that people can kind of find weirdness in anything, but I mean,
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot of I think like once I turned 18, I started getting a lot of weird messages from
Mm.
very old men online. But
Right.
I kind of just sort of delete them and just don't really look at them because I don't know. It just also it kind of makes me nervous. It makes me feel like, oh, have I done something wrong? Like, have I been
Mm.
like, am I posting something weird that like people are writing back to this? And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to blame myself for other people messaging me weird things. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, but no, I mean, I'm quite lucky in the sense that I haven't experienced like loads of negative messages. I haven't really
That's
gotten
good.
that many, but I'm sure like in my life I will.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, like it's the internet, so you have to take everything with a grain of salt because people are always going to feel much more confident saying things online than they would in real life. I always
Yeah.
think, like, would this person ever say this to my face? Probably not.
No,
So,
you never
yeah.
happens. Never happens.
So, like, I mean, even some of the nice ones, I'm like, they probably wouldn't say this to my face. Like they're nice, not like I'm not talking about the ones that are like
Yeah.
paragraph explaining things. I mean, like nice ones, like, oh, you're so pretty, but I'm like, you know, no one would ever say that like to my face. Do you know what I mean? So, but I don't know. I just think the internet can be a really nice place. I've also seen the weirdness of it,
Hmm.
like, but I'm thankful I can deal with the weirdness of it because then there's those really kind messages like the ones I talked about, and those are what those are what make all those weird messages worth
Yeah.
going through everything for.
Yeah. How would you say, what advice would you give to people your age that do get those weird messages? Was it just like, I guess, just shake it off kind of thing? Just, don't.
Yeah, like just don't engage, like don't
Yeah.
engage
Yeah.
with it because a lot of the times people will say really weird things and really inappropriate things to kind of provoke you into
Hmm.
answering them. It's just not worth it because like just especially if they're like weirdly kind of negative in a weird way, like don't
Hmm.
give people the satisfaction of replying to them. Just kind of delete it and
Yeah.
don't think about it because in real life if someone doesn't have the courage to say it to you in real life, then they obviously don't mean it that much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they obviously can't be that secure in their statement if they wouldn't say it
Hmm.
to you in real life. So
Yeah.
that's how I always see it. But yeah,
Yeah. That's a really good analogy, I think,
thank you.
to have. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, as well, like when you're studying. So what was it? Which school did you go to again? It was the
Well, I went to Sylvia's
Sylvia.
up until I was 16, and then I went to Arts Ed for sixth form.
Yeah. And so, I guess as well, like those environments can have pressures on you, right? For girls and sort of was your experience at drama school and everything like nice? Because like people that I've had on, Andrew Keach, who spoke about his time at drama school. We've had different actors and actresses on as well. And people either tend to say, amazing experience, best experience of my life, or they say, yeah, there was some really awful moments that, a lot of pressure, a lot of bitchiness, a lot of so I don't know, what was your experience like?
I was really lucky, actually.
That's good.
I think that I was lucky though because so when I was at Sylvia's, and it sounds weird, but like my best friends were like the teachers. Like I just loved the
Hmm.
teachers. I think that also probably came from the fact that I was working with adults all the time. So I was kind of more I felt more comfortable and less insecure communicating with adults than I did with people my own age. I felt really
Hmm.
nervous and insecure around people my own age. But when it came to adults, because I was used to working with them, I was like, okay, well, I know how to speak to these people. Like, I know how to speak to adults. But oddly, I was like, oh God, I don't know how to speak to people my age. So most of my friends were like, I say friends, but like I got on really well with the teachers there. And I think that that also came in handy in the sense that then if I had like an audition, I could talk to them and be like, what advice do you have without being afraid to, go and approach them. But all the teachers at Sylvia's were like so nice to the point where, I mean, I still talk to them all the time now. And then at Arts Ed, I think that's when I really came into my own in the sense of I gained so much confidence and I made so many friends, like friends for life at Arts Ed. I think because I had kind of grown more confident in myself, I was less insecure. I was able to kind of talk to people my own age finally and kind of be able to really make like good long lasting friendships.
Hmm.
And so I feel like, yeah, Arts Ed's definitely, yeah, amazing for like I think ArtSed's just one huge family, especially in terms of the students too. Like, it's amazing, honestly. But the teachers as well. Like, I have teachers from ArtSed that I will genuinely just call and go, oh God, can we go for coffee? Like before COVID and stuff. I mean, I'd be like, can we go for coffee? And like, I want to talk about this assignment. It's so interesting. Like, I want to get your opinions on this. And I do a lot of script writing in my own time. So I'd be like, oh, can you read my first draft? Like, and give me some notes. Like, and tell me what you think. What can I do with this character? What can I do to make this more interesting in the storyline? And it was just great. I mean, genuinely, I had such a good experience at both schools.
That's great. Are you hoping to do a bit of writing as well, like as you progress into things? Yeah, is that something you're passionate about as well? As, cause I know you sing, I know you act. Like, is writing something that you're very passionate about as well?
I love writing. I love writing. My ultimate dream in life is to write and act in my own either film or TV series. That's
Great.
I want to so badly, or play, to be honest. I want to write and act in a project that I've created. I've written. I write with my friends, actually. I write with two of my friends from ArtSed. I wrote one play over lockdown. My friend and I, we would FaceTime for like 3 hours every day and just write. So we wrote a play we wrote this kind of heightened, very like theatre of cruelty kind of play about class in England and kind of the connotations and sort of preconceived notions that come with class and come with your accent, and sort of how people will treat you depending on that. More like in the upper class community. But it was really interesting. And then now we're writing a play about consent for girls and boys kind of in our age group. Because I think that that's something that's really important, that's not necessarily, covered like completely in school. I don't think that's something that really gets touched on that much. And I think that it is something that should. One thing, there was this quote that was up in Sylvia's that I loved, and it was, don't settle for consent, strive for enthusiasm. And it was like, I just thought that was such a good quote that's always stuck with me. And I was like, that's something that everyone should be taught all the time, because I think that that's so important, for people my age to be taught about. But I'm also writing a play. I'm writing a lot of plays. I'm writing one with my friend Alistair. I'm writing two at the same time, kind of in different.
Okay, nice.
And we're writing a play, and it's all set in a pub in London. And
nice.
It's really interesting, actually. It's really cool. But I'm really enjoying that. So
yeah,
I love writing. It's like a huge release for me. So
yeah. And as a performer, I guess, what was your main passion then? Was it more acting or singing, or was it just natural performer? Was there something that you sort of really got you into the world of performing, wanting to do it?
I think I've always loved. I think the first thing, I don't know. I really came into kind of acting and singing at the same time, if that makes sense. So I feel like I've always loved both. My favorite is when I get to kind of put the two together, sort of like singing and acting. Not necessarily musical theatre even. Like, I know that there's lots of films that do singing and acting and stuff, and I really love that. But yeah, I mean, I just find I love performing. I love dancing as well. But I haven't been able to do that as much recently, but I've really gotten back into it actually in the past few weeks. At home, as much as but I think it just comes from kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of like escapism, isn't it? It's like what I love. I think about it. I've always loved that since I was little.
Do you find that with writing as well, though, like that escapism when you're writing, just that it kind of takes you away, I guess, from everything that's kind of going on in the world right now, and you're just kind of in your own world that you're creating, I suppose?
Yeah, I love writing in a weird way. I don't know if I've only seen one TV series that really shows how I feel in my head when I'm writing. Have you ever watched Jane the Virgin?
Yeah.
When she's writing and then she's got the characters and they're like speaking in front of her and she's just writing what they say.
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I feel.
That's
I
how you
feel like
feel?
I can
Okay, that's
literally
interesting.
see people in front of me and I'm just writing down what they're saying. Like I
Yeah,
play out these conversations in my head and I just write it down. But I
that's
really love
great.
it. I think that was also funnily, I love that show, but I loved watching kind of the joy that she got when she was writing.
Hmm.
So I watched that when I was really young. So I started writing kind of when I watched that show. I was like, oh, I want to experience this. So I started writing, and then I've always been into it, you know. But I love it. I've always written short stories, like even when I was little. But yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, how? I mean, obviously, I've heard you singing. You've got an amazing voice. Who was your musical influences? You know, singers that you looked up to when you were younger.
When I was younger, I mean, one of the first things that I ever sang, I was obsessed with the song Masquerade from Phantom of the Opera. Don't know
Yeah.
why. I was just obsessed with it. I'd play it on a loop and I would dance around. Um, to be honest, I was trained in opera. So growing up, uh, my singing teacher was probably my biggest inspiration. Her name was Stefania Antoniazzi, and she was probably my biggest inspiration because I would hear her sing when we were doing singing lessons at her house in Italy, and I wanted to stand with her so badly. She's a professional opera singer. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say anyone famous when I was younger. Probably I would probably just say her and kind of yeah, like Italian. Italy's a really beautiful place in the sense that you can hear singing in a lot of places you wouldn't expect to. So like you'll pass a church and you'll always hear because they're always sometimes they're empty. Like they'll just leave them empty during the day, and you can just go in and sing if you want to. So like instead of when I lived there, my favorite thing to do is if we ever saw a church, I would go in and I would sing, like I don't know, I would sing something, like I'd sing an aria or something, and that was my favorite thing to do. I remember I loved the opera Carmen, and I love singing songs from Carmen when I was little. So I would always go into churches and sing Carmen, but yeah, sounds really weird, but yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things actually about where I grew up was the fact that you've got these beautiful like resonant spaces where you can just sing and it just literally sounds like you're in heaven.
Hmm.
It's amazing. So
Were
that's
you,
yeah.
were you a fan of musical theatre as well as a kid?
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
yeah, yeah,
I was actually a fan of opera first,
yeah.
and then when I realized when I was like 5, I was like, oh, Phantom of the Opera is a musical. Maybe I should listen to other musicals. So I started listening to, other musicals and I started performing then in like the community theatre that we had in our town.
Hmm.
Um, and I've just loved it ever since. I remember one of my first roles was Annie. I was Annie in Annie, which is funny
Yes, yeah.
because then I was actually Annie and Annie in the UK.
Hmm.
But before I was Annie in Italy. And I remember I was so into the character that I told my mum I was going to my friend's house when I was 9, and I went and I got my hair dyed permanently red. I got my hair bleached and dyed red. And
How did your mum feel about that?
because my mom's friend was a hairdresser, and I was like, no, my mom said it was fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so she did it. And then my mom was like, what did you do? And I was like, oh. But anyway, it took like 2 years to grow out, but it was an experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it
Which is
was.
really funny. But I've always been very into committing to the role. Um, but yeah, I've always just I love performing.
Yeah.
Um, and I love like costume and makeup and things that go with performing, like the kind of layers that you get to put on to kind of take on the character. That's something that I love. That's something I always find really helps me get into characters, the costume, actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you been watching anything much on Netflix and stuff over lockdown? Any sort of series and things you've been into?
Oh, I've gotten back into Lost.
Lost.
Have you ever
Okay.
watched Lost?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, I watched it. Yeah, a long time ago. But yeah, I used to love it.
I watched it when I was really little, like when I
Yeah.
was 10, and I didn't really remember it, but I remembered bits and pieces, and it came up on Apple TV, and I was like, I'm gonna rewatch Lost. But I watched The Undoing, which I loved. It was like an amazing performance, and I recently watched Pieces of a Woman, which was like heartbreaking. And then I watched Promising Young Woman. I don't know if you've seen that. Have you watched
No, I
Promising?
haven't seen that. No.
You should definitely watch that. It's so good. It was such a surprise. I clicked on it and I was like, I'm just going to watch this. It has a cool cover. And then without reading like the description of what it was about, and I watched it and I was so surprised. And I've never cried so hard at the end of a film. So good.
Nice.
Yeah, you should definitely watch that. That's my top recommendation.
Are you reading as well at the minute? Because I know you write. Do you read much as well when you're at home?
Yes, I'm reading Americana at the moment.
Okay.
It's by my favorite author, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She wrote Purple Hibiscus, which is one of my favorite books like of all time. A lot of her books are set in Nigeria, and I find it really interesting to like learn about the culture there and kind of, you know, like the religious side of it. And then she talks about it like from a feminist perspective, and I think it's really interesting. So I would really recommend that.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, what do you sort of hope for, you know, I guess post-COVID, I suppose, you know, luckily, you know, we're getting the vaccines out there, and hopefully, you know, this time next year we'll all be able to laugh about all this, that it's all, you know, it's all happened and gone. But yeah, what are you kind of hoping for sort of in the future for yourself? Are you hoping to write more, act more, sing more? What, you know?
I'm up for a lot of things that would let me like travel and go to really cool places. I'd love to do that. I'd love to take advantage of the freedom of post-COVID and go travel and like see different places in the world I haven't been to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so it sounds like you've got some cool things lined up. Look forward to seeing more of you on the screen. I feel like a proud big brother when I see you on screen. Like I'm like, oh, there she is. I remember you. I'm trying to think how old you were when I met you. Well, how old were you? 14-ish, something like that.
Yeah, I must have been like
13, 14. Yeah, it was really amazing to watch you in Finding Alice. I mean, I suppose to finish, Isabella, what would you kind of, you know, advice to people that your age that are perhaps interacting, studying at, you know, theatre school or whatever it might be? What's sort of the advice you'd give to girls your age, I suppose, that you've picked up?
I would give it to them, and I would also give it to myself, because I feel like it's really easy to say. I feel like this advice was very easy to give when I was doing interviews and I wasn't in like the final for any jobs. But like when you're in like deep into recalls, your perception of things kind of gets a bit skewed. So I'm going to give it to them, and I'm going to give it to myself. Is rejection, not getting a job, does not define you, and it does not define the quality of your acting. It's a lot of the time down to something that you can't control, and your self-worth should never be based on your job. Your self-worth should be based on the way that you feel when you act, the way that you feel about yourself, and the way that you make others feel. So I would give that advice, to never base your self-worth on your jobs, like your successes or your rejections, because both are necessary to make a good actor. You need success and you need rejection to build like kind of the foundation for acting. You can't have one without the other. So I would say that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Isabella, I'm looking forward to seeing you more on screen. You're writing as well. I'm going to be looking out for that. But I need you to, before you go, I need you to promise that when you're one of the biggest names in the country, you will come back on the podcast and speak to me again.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but I would love to come back on the podcast. So, yeah.
Brilliant. You take care, Isabella. Love to your family.
Thank you.
Cheers.